In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello, welcome back. This is In the Tunnel. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Sean.
And we are back for episode number 2. This time we're talking hockey, the playoffs. We're going to get back into some playoff talk now that action's finally gotten the gear. And we're going to talk NBA playoffs because I guess that's still a thing that people want. So in order to raise our demographics and hopefully our potential audiences, we are conforming. I don't think we thought of ourselves as the co-hosts to be doing it, but here we are before you to just fill some needs. So, right now we are, as we've said last week, not year, it's been a long year, but we are remote, North Carolina and New Jersey. But we are both watching NHL hockey games in progress right now, the playoffs in full swing. We did not see the start of the playoffs happening quite like this, though.
I mean, that's totally true in every case. Like, what's going on?
I mean, we sat here predicting 6 and 7 game series for most of these matchups and thinking, like, you know, even the teams that really didn't belong would have snagged a game or two. But after, like, 2-3 games in each series, really depending on which series we're looking at, it just does not give off that impression at all. I mean, we've got 6 of the 8 series, or playoff matchups, I should say, that are without 2 winners. Like, and by that I mean you got Boston, you got Columbus, Nashville, San Jose, Tampa Bay, because right now it's April 16th. It's just all these teams are up 2-0 in their series, and then you got Vegas with a 3-0 series lead. We just didn't see this one coming down like this.
I mean, I can safely say that the only series that we remotely expected to start like this was Nashville and Colorado.
Yeah, I think that we thought that was a series that I think, and, you know, not that any of us going to go back and check, let's be honest, but we thought that was probably going to be a 5-game series. We probably thought Colorado stole one at home or something, but, like, and, you know, that one's actually been more interesting than it looked on from afar because, you know, Colorado's kind of had, like, their moments and have stayed in games longer than we were anticipating. I think we thought Nashville was just going to run away with it. And they, you know, the Colorado Avalanche have been sticking around. They just are... They find the door to leave the arena a few minutes earlier than the Predators do, it seems, and they just kind of, like, take their exit while the Predators are kind of like, oh, well, you know, it is the third period, let's strike a few more times.
Yeah. I mean, so let's just get into it and talk about the 2 interesting series, we'll call them, right? So we have...
Mm-hmm.
The Battle of Pennsylvania and Winnipeg and Minnesota.
Yeah, and we say that these are the 2 interesting series just because both teams in each of those have actually won a game. Like, let's kid ourselves here. Winnipeg looked strong in their first 2 games.
I mean, to be fair, they did, but Minnesota didn't look like they were out of it. The first game, I watched the entirety of the first game. Like, most of the game was really, really close, and they only got that goal in the third period and then kind of just, like, cruised with it. But
No, that's true, and I just think that maybe I'm a little biased because right now you look at teams like Minnesota that haven't really won in recent years, despite whatever roster they put together. And for me, it's just an expectation that they're going to fold at some point. They haven't really gotten out of the first two rounds. I dare say they're kind of a Western Conference Capitals team. So it's just, you know, I expected Winnipeg to come out just on fire. And like you said, they've been playing close games. I just don't know that Minnesota can top them. That Winnipeg home ice advantage, that atmosphere was wild.
yeah, but I mean, Minnesota did come back and win the third game, which was at home. So, I mean, the first game was really close. So, if they can take the momentum from winning that third game into the fourth and keep the series a home type of streak, right? The home team wins, then and they can challenge Winnipeg in their stadium. They've shown it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's true.
it's gonna be like they do have to put a really good showing out for Game 4, though.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think. Oh, excuse me. Winning games at home does wonders for you, but unfortunately, a 7 game series means eventually you still have to win a game somewhere else.
Yeah, if you're the lower seed, definitely. But
Yeah.
I mean, I think they can. I mean, the games have been close. It's not like teams getting blown out all the time. All right, so I mean, that's what we think of the Winnipeg and Minnesota series. So let's get to the Pittsburgh and Philadelphia series. I mean, I know
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
a lot to talk about that one.
Yeah. I could go on a full-on rant, but I think we've decided we're going to put a time limit on how long we run this episode. But, I'd like to say that it's an entertaining series, but the fact of the matter is the fact that you can breathe at the end, by the third period in each of the first 3 games, just goes to show it's been like swings of up and down where one team is wildly up and the other team is wildly down. And it's just crazy. See, what bothers me, and I don't know that Sean completely agrees, is that if you're a Penguins fan or if you're the Penguins, you've won 2 straight cups playing a skill and speed paced game. And the Flyers, they're not really that physical team that they were years ago, but still they have more physicality at their disposal than the Penguins do. Like the Penguins, that's clearly not their game. So in game 2, the Penguins lose 5-1, and I'm watching Malkin, I'm watching all these guys trying to body and play this physical game with the Flyers, and I'm thinking, this is not what has worked for you in years past. What are you doing? You're not playing to your forte, and I understand that there's adjustments that all the teams make, but like, you got to know that you're not scoring goals by doing this, and if you can't stop the Flyers on defense, you got to be outscoring them, and you're not doing that by playing a physical game.
I mean, I can agree with that. Like, I do think they were playing a little bit of a too physical of a game 2. But I mean, I just think that if they do fall back into this, like the first game blowout, 7-0 or whatever it was. Like
Yeah.
you chase the goalie
Good time.
and everything, right? And then
Yeah.
why do you go into the second game where you know the Flyers have the exact same personnel, and then you just play differently.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
that
I mean, sure, there's going to be minute differences, but like, completely change your game as like, what are you doing?
yeah. I mean, maybe you chip and chase a little differently, but you don't go from like what worked to like a complete 180 the other way. I just didn't understand it. And then like you're surprised that you only got one goal out of the game.
Yeah, but
I
then
wouldn't. I wasn't surprised, and I was watching.
like you go to game 3 and then it's a 5-1 on the other way. So Pittsburgh wins this one 5-1. Like, how are you just you're playing so well game 1. You played abysmal game 2.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then game 3 was like, what's going on? Like, if they didn't have those opportunities, like,
Well, I'll say this: the first three games of the series, it seems like whoever makes a huge save, one of the goaltenders makes a huge save early on in the game. It seems like that's the big swing is they didn't open the door and let that one in. And Brian Elliott did that in game two. Murray did it in game one and in game three. Because in game three, the Flyers came out and had that momentum. They had that energy, and the Penguins were not getting chances. Then Murray made an unbelievable save, and then after that, the pressure from the Flyers kind of started to diminish. The defense steps up, and
yeah.
then over time, as the game goes on, and the Penguins are now up like 2-0 in the second, or they're up 3-0. They're able to start playing their game more and more, and as they're playing their game in their style more and more, they're generating more goals, and we end up with a score like 5-1.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I agree. But I mean, it's just like, even then, like, if you're letting in an early goal or not making that like crucial save at the beginning, like your defense needs to be there for you too. Like you shouldn't really have to face like immediate tough shots and all that jazz.
Oh yeah, I think that the defense has played subpar for the first three games. I think they finally started to warm up and play better in the second half of the third game, but the first 10 minutes, first 20 minutes, I should say, just were not great. I find myself watching the game standing in front of a TV going, get the puck out of the zone more than anything else. I'm not asking for shots. I'm just asking and praying that it gets out of the zone defensively, which, as you know, I'd rather be rooting for other aspects of the game, but this is where we're
I,
at.
I mean, like the game is back and forth, but you don't want to be constantly in your zone for like 10 minutes. I agree.
Yeah, it's very hard in a momentum-based sport like hockey to win games when your back is to your own goal.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really as much as we can talk about on that series.
So,
And of course, we now throw to you because we want to hear about the Tampa Bay and New Jersey Devils series from your aspect of it.
all right. I mean, like, so, I mean, as we're recording this, the third game is going on. And so, I mean, I do agree with you that, like, the early goals or early huge saves do define the series. And I mean, it showed pretty clearly, like, Tampa Bay has actually scored first in every single game so far. And it's just showing, like, the first two games, our defense, like, defensively, as an entire team, we've been lacking, to put it lightly. And even then, like, there might have been a goal that Kincaid shouldn't have let in before he got pulled. Well, that second game, he got pulled pretty damn early for letting in
Mm-hmm.
those. And then you just can't recover. Like, especially in the playoffs, like, that first goal means a lot.
Yeah, I mean,
It's so hard
we've
to
heard it
recover
year
from
in
it.
and year out that the first goal wins you like 70% games or some. I don't remember what the specific number is, but those first goals are huge because you never know when it's just going to be a 1-0 game in the playoffs.
Yeah, as much as it doesn't like end up being like that most of the time, like that first goal really carries the momentum because if you can string that momentum along and get like 3 or 4 goals, then it's like impossible to come back. Like you've seen the Devils try to do and fail twice. And
Yeah,
I mean, that's all like for the first 2 games I have to say. For the third game, like we've played as of now, we've played our best first period of the series
yeah, and we're looking at a 1-1 tie game right
at
now
the end of the second.
because for radio purposes, I think.
Yeah, so like they've played pretty well, but then again, like Tampa Bay scored the first goal. I mean, we did come back and we applied the pressure and we had it in their zone constantly for a while, and it wasn't like that normal Devils stay in their zone until they can get a breakaway kind of thing this time. So I mean, that's nice, but like, and thankfully we responded in the second period and tied it up, unlike the others. So
Yeah, is this the first instance where you guys are playing with a tie game, or did you guys have a lead in any of the games, or
we did
were you
not have a
play?
lead in any of the games.
So truly, this is the best performance for the Devils in the playoffs so far.
Yeah, like the only other
Just to
time
be
we had a
even.
tie game was after the first period of the second game. So 2 days ago.
Wow.
And then, I mean, Tampa just ran away with it in the second, scoring 4 goals, and we answered with one.
Yeah, that's what scares me about Tampa Bay and about Boston is they just have this like once they get rolling, they can really pour it on.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's so hard to come back. Like, because the first game, right? Tampa scored 3 in a row. We could only respond with 2 before we had to pull our goalie, and then they just empty netted.
Yeah,
And
and
then
look,
this game, the second game, it's just, I mean, we responded with 1, but then we gave up 4. Like, you can't come back from that in the playoffs.
yeah. I mean, I think excuse me. The same can be said for the Boston series. Is you look at what's going on with how they just absolutely pour it on. I could swear I walked out of my room the other day and walked back in 15 minutes later, and it's like, oh wow, it's 4-0 Boston in the first period with 5 minutes left in the first. And it's like, you think that Toronto's playing this balanced game, and it just all of
It
a sudden disappears in
it's not clicking
Boston.
for them until this
Yeah,
game. Like, so their game's also in progress, right? So they have like 4 minutes left in the third.
yeah. So, I
Um,
mean, that might.
Toronto's up 4-2, but like this game was close for most of it.
Yeah. So the question is do we have the same scenario with Boston and Toronto as we do with Minnesota and Winnipeg? Do we have a situation where it's going to be split series after 4 because everybody takes their home ice uh, games as wins, and then all of a sudden you got to turn around and say, well, someone's got to lose at home.
Well, I don't know. I think Boston can win a home game against Toronto, an away game against Toronto.
Yeah, I think that they could too. I'm just in terms of the trend, it appears like it's heading that way, and I was just curious as if to see, do you think that Toronto steps up and makes it that kind of environment where it's just impossible for the away team to win, or is there still that very realistic chance that Boston can take it?
I think there's a realistic chance that Boston can take it.
I think that firepower is just too good to be able to contain with a fan environment and with the product on the ice for Toronto. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And
So,
then, yeah, I think we're all surprised with what's going on that the Capitals,
well, I
perennial
mean,
losers of the second round, might not even make it there this year.
yeah. I
From
mean,
President's Trophy to RIP, essentially.
yeah, but I mean, like, they 2 close games with Columbus. Like, nobody said this would be an easy series either. And the
That's
the
true, but
record right now is deceiving. Both games went to overtime. So these games were
hmm
close. So that's why like these games really do show what we were saying, and this series can be really close. It's just both times tipped the favor of Columbus in overtime.
yeah, and it makes you wonder because you have the all pro or not all pro, all star goaltender in Holtby sitting on the bench because Grubauer was the hot goaltender going into the playoffs. Is it now time for him to take the back seat because he has let in those two game winners from Columbus?
Holtby's the one that let them in, didn't they? Or was it Grubauer? No, Grubauer did. No,
Grubauer
aren't they?
started both games.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they should like the Devils did. The Devils gave Schneider the reins, right? For game 3. So I don't think if you have to change your goalie for this game, because if you lose this game, you're not throwing your other goalie into a do or die situation.
Yeah, it's. I think you get a little bit more composure and you can get back into your groove if you just give Holtby game 3.
Yeah, but we'll see. Whatever.
Yeah, I mean we've seen Holtby get chased in the playoffs too, so there's no guarantee either way. But you got to think that Grubauer, hot streaks end for a reason, and
I
his
mean,
might have just run out at the wrong time.
you're seeing it in Kincaid. You're seeing it in Grubauer. Those are your two hot streak goalies going into the
Yeah, and boy,
postseason.
they're fizzling out quick.
Yeah. All right, so let's hit the rest of the West, man. So
Yeah,
I let's talk about the Battle of California, Anaheim versus San Jose first.
yeah. Didn't we sit here last week and both pick the Sharks to lose the series?
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and we sit here so
This
far
week,
being wrong because
very wrong.
Anaheim hasn't really done much of anything in this series, it seems like.
Yeah, their game's tonight, so
Yeah, and
we'll see.
hot take, we probably will not be watching that one.
It's way too late for Eastern time, man.
Yeah, well, not even that, just because it all depends on what goes on with these East Coast games. I think with the Devils fan on the line here, I think one game might be enough.
Yeah, but San Jose has really stepped it up in my opinion.
Yeah, and I didn't really see that one coming.
Yeah,
The Evander Kane edition was nice, but I don't think we thought that was going to do much of anything.
I mean, I do think it adds scoring. I just didn't think he would have that first game he did to really and then they carried the momentum of the first game into the second and never let it go.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing about this is we're talking about the away team here.
Yeah,
First two games, we're not talking about they did this at home.
yeah. I mean, to be fair, like they're both in California.
They are, but
I and you're gonna get like an environment like you'll have it at Pittsburgh and Philly series where you'll have both teams fans there.
true. I think that still I just didn't see this one coming like that.
Oh no, I definitely didn't see the San Jose leading 2-0 and it's been pretty convincing. It's not like they've been close games like the Columbus and Washington series. They've been like they were clearly the better team
Yeah, so
on the ice
we go
all
back
60.
we go back to the John Gibson factor. Does he just perennially choke, or not perennially, annually choke in the playoffs?
Well, I mean, I
There
don't
seems
know.
to be evidence to prove it so far. I mean, he's a young goaltender still, but
Yeah.
this is just not good.
Yeah.
And you
I
gotta
mean,
wonder if you're Anaheim, is this guy really the guy of the future? Because if you're not going to win cups with this guy, you probably want to know now.
yeah, but I mean, you could also say they could make some additions here or there, but because I mean, I feel like Anaheim's a very physical team, but they don't have many playmakers, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you look at San Jose, they were physical. They added Evander Kane, and he's a playmaker. You look at
Right.
literally almost every other team, right? Tampa Bay has Kucherov and Stamkos. The Devils have Hall. You have Marchand
Right.
and you
And
have
Bergeron.
Marchand and Bergeron in Boston.
You
You
got
have Matthews,
Line.
Marner, Nylander in Toronto. You got Line in Winnipeg. You still got playmakers on the Wild, like Parise, even though he's getting older, he's still technically a playmaker.
Mm-hmm. And with Taylor Hall, I think you probably already said.
I mean, I definitely said Taylor Hall.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought Parise and just took a flashback.
Yeah, and then like again, like we can keep going down this, and most teams have playmakers because like Washington obviously has Ovechkin, and some of the supporting cast still left.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is even more like, how are they like down in a series to a team that's never won a playoff series?
Yeah, but then like you go to Pittsburgh and you have Crosby and Malkin. They're both playmakers, but they
Mm-hmm.
have Malkin has a little bit of a physical game to him.
Yeah, Malkin's got that "don't poke the bear because he'll get angry" kind of thing going on.
Yeah,
The
and then
angry
like
Malkin is not one that you really want to play defense against.
yeah, so I mean like every team has playmakers, and the Ducks really don't. I mean, they had that one breakout season from Raquel last year, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sure, he's good, but I don't think he's a playmaker.
Yeah, you kind of figure out if a guy's a role player or not after that first year. I think we
Yeah.
talked about it last week. Breakouts players, they break out for a reason. Is you weren't really always paying attention to them, and sure you adjust over the course of the season, but like when you finally focus up as you should on some players, they
Yeah.
just fall right back down to an average level.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how the series is going, and I don't think there's much else to say about that.
Oh, tie game on New Jersey. We have an update on that. So
Yeah, I mean, so it's 2-2 now. The Lightning scored on a power play, I'm pretty sure, and the
and the
Devils
Devils just came
responded.
right back with the same thing.
Yeah,
That was
so
a power play, right?
yep. Yep. So, I mean, we'll see. This game is pretty close. Like, this is a good for a Devils fan. Like, at least we're still fighting, and it's not like we're 2 or 3 goals down in the third.
Yeah, and we'll touch on in a few minutes, but update in the basketball world, there's games going on. So we'll touch on that in a few minutes. I think we just
Well,
have a
we'll
couple topics
try.
left. Yeah, we're gonna try. It's hard for us to cover sports that take 7 hours to complete. So really, other than that, what do we have to talk about
So,
in
I mean, I
terms
want to
of?
get to Vegas and Los Angeles last. So,
Okay.
let's talk about like we touched on Nashville and Colorado. That series is going just how I expected.
Yeah, except from my end, I didn't expect Colorado to put up the number of goals that they have. I didn't expect a 1 goal game in game 2.
Yeah, true. I mean, they got a lot of clean shots, and but the thing is, right? Even Colorado has playmakers, right? Like,
Oh yeah, Blake Como.
no, like McKinnon is a playmaker. Landeskog can do things. Kerfoot is like coming out, like this is his first season, so we'll see what he can do. But like, they have McKinnon and a supporting cast of people who can still make plays. That's why they can score a lot.
Yeah,
But
and
like,
then they have Jonathan Bernier, the human welcome mat, playing goal because, well, it just welcomes
well,
everybody right in.
I mean, the problem is you lost your goaltender 3 or 4 games before the end of the season, and that sucks. Like,
It does, but let's not pretend that Varlamov, as he's a pretty good goaltender, but he
he's better
hasn't
than
been
Bernier.
elite. He hasn't been elite for years.
But he's
He
carried the team.
prominence in that like 08-09 Capitals year.
Yeah, but the thing is, right? they lost Varlamov and they almost missed the playoffs because he was at least solid enough to give them a fighting chance.
No, that's
In
true.
in the they missed it the last couple of games they were without him and they almost missed, but it was a battle of who didn't want to go to the playoffs in St. Louis and Colorado because they were playing equally as bad.
Yeah, and this might be the only time that St. Louis has finished a season with a real win. Just because if between the two teams that were going to get smoked, at least St. Louis got a few days' notice.
Yeah, so I mean, that series is going exactly how I expected it. Because, I mean, both teams have playmakers, so you're going to get some goals. I mean, sure,
Yeah.
1 goal game is not 100% what I expected. Because
I think, especially in Nashville as the setting, I expect that more in Colorado than I did in Nashville.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, but, like, again, I don't, like, also, a lot of Colorado's players are younger, so how much does the setting of where they're playing actually affect them? It's more of, like, playoff jitters and stuff like that.
Right, so it might affect more.
But I don't know, like, eh, true, but like again, like what else? I just see these two teams like you're gonna get both sides to score, and I just think Nashville's gonna win because they can stop more pucks, which is turning out to be a little hard for them.
It comes down to having an elite goaltender versus a very crappy one.
Well, again, but they lost their pretty average goaltender.
Yeah.
So I mean, because I think if Varlamov's in the series, it's a lot closer.
Yeah, so essentially this has been differences in good and bad teams.
But I do think if
Playoff edition.
But I do think if Varlamov's in the series, like, you would expect those 1 goal games, because I think he can keep that team in there.
Yeah, and maybe another game or two in terms of how far the series will go.
Yeah. Alright, so let's touch on Vegas and Los Angeles, currently the only 3-0
Yeah, so we now
of the
have
playoffs.
The first ever time that an expansion team and a team in the first year of their existence has won their first 3 playoff games. And really, it's just...
They're playing so much better. That's
yeah,
it.
I mean...
like
we say... You can say save the best for last, but I think really, Vegas they're just playing best regardless.
Yeah, like, I mean, the games are close in some ways. Like, last game was 1 goal. All games are 1-goal games.
Yeah. But from a defensive aspect, it's everything that the Penguins-Flyers series isn't.
Oh, yeah. And, like, it just feels like Vegas is playing the long-haul game. And LA is kind of faltering when they all get tired, but Vegas is finding that second cylinder.
Yeah,
because like
you can only say that you didn't see Vegas being this good for so long because. And
hey, I have them going to the Stanley Cup final.
Sean had him in the final. So right then and there, qualified co-host. We have a qualified co-host.
Yeah, so I mean, I just think people you have to understand that they deserve to be a favorite. Not only because of how they played, not because they're new. They shouldn't be looked down upon because they're new or anything like that. They deserve to be a favorite due to how they played in the regular season. And sure, they faltered a little bit at the end, but they showed you they're picking it up. They're playing playoff hockey, those nitty-gritty tight games that are really defensive in nature.
Yeah, West Coast Flurry out in Vegas just doesn't seem to have any of the jitters that he ever had in Pittsburgh. Not that he had those jitters last year in his last year with Pittsburgh, but there's just something about his swagger right now where he just cannot be fazed.
Yeah, I mean,
it's impressive to watch. and I root for Fleury obviously as
And
a Penguins fan, but
you also have to understand is they had a pretty good expansion, like the best expansion draft for any team in history, right? So
yeah,
it's not like any of their players were bad.
yeah, no, I think that Sean and I we were looking at the list from the expansion draft before, and we were kind of like shocked, like yeah, they really were handed a lot of talent here, and then they were able to get rid of some of these guys to get some
For
picks because they really didn't need them. So like guys like Trevor Van Riemsdyk end up in Carolina. Mark Mathot didn't really end up playing for the Knights, did he?
Dallas.
Yeah, so like look at how well they've done like with let's say 70% of the guys that they picked up from the expansion draft.
Yeah. I mean, so that's my little rant of you have to judge the Golden Knights based on their performance, not their expectations going to the season at this point. So I think they're a favorite.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. Like I would love to debate against it, but I don't think the LA Kings are going to let me here. The LA Kings are just kind of like we're in the playoffs. It's just
I mean, the LA Kings are playing pretty well. It's just they're falling a little bit flat at the end of every game, whether it's in second overtime after 95 minutes of play or at literally the end of the game.
yeah, it's a shame because it's like every time they want to show up, and then it just flatlines, like you said.
Yeah,
But
so
regardless, and just to move on really quick, what one of the things I wanted to do is we're going to transition into a segment called "Reasons Why Hockey Playoffs Are Great." And you know, as lopsided as these series may seem to be, hockey, it's just the playoffs are a beautiful time of year, and you know, did a little research. And my first point was that in the regular season, we're talking any from October till the first week of April, about 6.5 months span, you have 21 suspensions in the whole regular season. We have been through like 2 games of each of these playoff series. We're already at 3 suspensions in the playoffs. These teams and these players know that emotionally it just kicks up another notch in the playoffs. It just makes it so much more fun to watch. And we're not even talking about fighting. We're just talking these guys are putting in an extra gear. They're fighting for the guys staying to the left and right of them. It's just so more passion and more fun to watch. And meanwhile, you look at the NBA, you look at some other sports, you just don't really see that. It's more of a story of what they're doing off.
there is so much more intensity in hockey as you come to playoff time, and it really does show.
Yeah, and like when we say that there's 3 guys who have been suspended,
Too.
we're not even talking about the guys who could have been suspended.
Yeah.
Like there's some borderline stuff where we go, wow, that didn't warrant it.
Yeah, but I mean, so we have the list. It was Drew Doughty who got 1 game, and Nazem Kadri who got 3 games.
Yeah,
So
and then we had that was my bad. Like you said, it was 2, not 3, because Tom Wilson of the Capitals got 0 games for his actions out in that was game 1 against the Blue Jackets.
yeah, all these things happened game 1. By the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah, we just happened to be. We're gonna wait a little while to record.
yeah. So I mean, that's a good and bad thing, but it shows you the intensity of like the playoffs, how it really ramps up, and that's just a great thing about like the hype that builds to the playoffs and how everybody just keeps getting more intense, and then the playoff games are so intense and so like if you're even just watching a game on TV, you can hear the crowd no
Oh
matter
yeah.
where,
Oh,
like what
and
arena
that's
you're
just
watching.
so beautiful. Like you feel like you're as if it was the Super Bowl but it was all one crowd. Like, it feels like there's 70,000 people in a 15,000 seat arena. That's just how loud the fans get for the playoffs, and it makes the environment. It gives you just goosebumps, even if you're not in the arena. It just gives you chills, and it's just
Yeah, and so that's, I mean, I agree that the intensity and emotions are a great part of this game, and
right. I think it's unmatched in terms of other sports and what they bring to the table.
I mean, we can talk about basketball later.
Yeah,
We'll do some. We'll talk a little bit about like the differences, I guess, because we're both pretty big hockey guys.
yeah, and rightfully so. I think we both grew up in New Jersey, being Nets fans to some degree. It's, as far as I know, I think they're probably going to make it to the finals this year. I'm not really sure in what. Hey, I
Finals and losing their first overall draft pick again.
you know, consistency reigns supreme. So, if it works, keep rolling with it. But you know, it's just so easy to outgrow basketball now, and it's a fun sport to play. But it's kind of like it's
I
not
mean,
a
I can't watch it.
game. Yeah, we're more momentum sport guys now.
Yeah, like it's just coming from hockey, right? The sports does not stop. It keeps going until something goes wrong. I literally sat through 10 minutes of continuous hockey. In basketball, it goes like 30 seconds, and then it just stops. And then the
Yeah.
ball's thrown back in the court, and it keeps going.
Yeah, we got 24-second shot clocks in basketball. We barely get through them anymore. It's wild. I mean, I remember 2 years ago I fell asleep during a finals game. How does that happen?
I don't
how?
even watch, like, I literally tried to watch a finals game, but like the last 2 minutes of the half took 20, and I was done.
Yeah. How am I supposed to get into a game that can't even get into itself? It's just... And this is why we're
And
talking
update,
hockey
update,
in our first episode and not NBA.
Update, Devils have scored, so they're actually leading for the first time all series. 7 minutes left in the third. So I mean, I think we got
7 minutes
through.
left in the third. I got 10.5 on my screen.
What the hell are you watching?
I have no idea, but I don't think it's right.
It's 7 minutes left in the third.
Spoiler alert, time goes slower in the south. So, right in there.
Yeah, but I think
Breaking science down on the show.
so the last, actually, I do want to touch on one more hockey topic before we move on to
absolutely.
basketball.
Kind of prematurely got into basketball, as most people do.
Yeah, so I do. We mentioned that there were two suspensions, and I think there was two other cases that could have been a suspension, depending. So I do want to talk about the Department of Player Safety, or DOPS, because if you look at them, like, I mean, Kadri definitely a warranted suspension. Like,
Right.
if you
he
do
kinda
that
has a
crap,
reputation too.
yeah, but if you do that crap, I don't care. You're out of the game. Get a suspension, right? But Doughty's suspension, that was a little iffy. I mean, I can see where they're coming from by doing it, but if you're not consistent during the regular season and you do it now, there's a little.
I mean, I could see why it would be suspendable. The hit was close to the head. It wasn't right at the head.
No, it was at the shoulder. He actually made contact with the shoulder. So I agree with the call on the ice. I don't necessarily agree with the suspension.
Right. I think it's kind of a hype factor thing.
But
it's
you're
unfortunate because, like,
you're suspending after the fact. It should not be a hype factor.
No, I mean, like, after the game, you're like, ooh, was that a dirty hit? And if enough people, as casual fans, think that it is, or if
they don't
think
care.
that they're not going to get a break for their team, then it's like, okay, now we're lowering the bar to what's allowed.
But, I mean, I think that what happened, like, on real time, when the referee had to call whatever, that was fine. maybe fine him, sure, because that was
Hmm.
close. But
Right.
that's not a suspension worthy hit, especially when you can go back and look at it as somebody reviewing it,
No,
in my
you're right.
opinion.
You're right.
So I just wanted to bring that up because like it's been a huge topic all season. Like, what's the wheel of what's what's the Department of Player Safety gonna spin and land on for this
Yeah, the
player? Like,
wheel of discipline is,
yeah,
is which is its own game, but we're not going to touch on that.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, I just wanted to touch on that really quick because I thought it was like interesting, like
No, it seems
how
it's like that every year. Is you get like was it last year? Me being the biased Penguins fan I am, you had the Niskanen hit on Crosby that concussed him and looked pretty close to being in the head area, and
yeah,
that got no suspension. So it's kind of like,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
I agree
what?
with you,
Where is the bar in the playoffs? And
but
it always seems to change.
I don't think you should raise or lower the bar in the playoffs. I
Right,
think
exactly. It
you
should
need to
stay
set a
still.
bar the first couple of weeks in the regular season and hold it.
Yeah,
And that's
which
my problem. That's the only reason I wanted to bring it up. Like, it's kind of like you gave him this one game suspension for something that was in real time. Okay, it looked kind of bad, but once anybody can look at it again, nobody thought that was terrible.
no, yeah, I think you're right, but I think I wouldn't say that you establish it in the regular season and carry it on throughout and through the playoffs because, like we've said just in this show, the playoffs are a different animal. It's a different emotional intensity. So I think if you want to have a bar that you keep it at, you establish it in the playoffs in those first games, and you keep it there. Which
But
is it's hard because you don't have uh, an idea of what's going to happen in the playoffs, and every series is different. Not
mhm.
game one in the West is going to be game one in the series in the East, but it's like if you went by regular season rules, half the teams would be in the penalty box.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also a precedent. Like, the NHL does it every year in which they loosen up towards the end of the season. If they didn't loosen up during the end of the season, people would get it by the end of the season. And they wouldn't do that stuff.
No, that's true. Can't
Because,
argue with that logic.
I mean, both of us see it every year that, oh, what would have been called a slash or a hook in game one is now just normal play in game 80.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think that's
it's
wrong too. I mean, I am okay with loosening a little bit to allow a more physical game, but like there are some things where it's just like I know you would have called that. Why aren't you
right.
calling
And
that?
like you said, we're talking about the Department of Player Safety, and if you're fluctuating on what the level is for player safety, there's probably going to be some arguments between the Players Association and the league soon. We're
Yeah, I
not
think if
trying to
I was
see
the
another
league, I'd be
lockout.
initiating. But
Yeah.
no, there's no lockout until the 2021 season, possibly. I think it is. That's the current CBA.
So let's see how long they can hold a grudge.
Hmm, we'll see. All right, well, I think I've touched on everything I want. You wanna?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think I have anything else for hockey to. Uh, oh, I did have one more thing. My question, just because of the Avalanche Predators series that we touched on earlier, do we think that the Predators are still the team to beat? And by team to beat, we go hand in hand with the fact that they won the President's Trophy. Are they the team to beat? A one goal win at home against the Avalanche, uh, not playing their 100% greatest games yet. Do
I
they look
think
weak?
I think it's like I mean that was one game, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna just totally take them out after two games, right? I mean they still won them,
No, I mean that's
and
true.
it's
And
only
like,
been two games, and we'll see. Like it, what really matters is can they play on the road, right? Even though they have the President's Trophy and always gonna play home, somebody's gonna beat them at home at some point. It's not like none of these teams are gonna be easy.
yeah, no, that's true. And I mean, we've seen a
How
President's
do they
Trophy
bounce back
winner
on the
go
road, right?
down a bunch.
So
Yeah,
like come back after round one and depending on, or even next week, like when we come back on, like we'll revisit it then because we'll have seen how they can play on the road.
Yeah,
Be-
and we'll see how that Colorado atmosphere is like because I don't think we're expecting it to be anything like what it is in Nashville. But it might just be enough to sway the series a little bit. You never know. It's the
yeah,
beauty of the playoffs, part two.
yeah. So, all right, with the hockey talk coming to a close, it's time to move on to these two talk about some basketball, which I don't think any of us have watched. Either of us have watched much of the regular
Yeah,
season.
yeah. Apparently, not only is it still happens to be every year. They don't just pick two teams out of a bowl that just contains pieces of paper saying Warriors and Cavs anymore. I guess they just decide
Well,
that.
actually, so at least like I do think that these playoffs are probably the least set in stone. Like if you asked me last year and the year before, I was like I literally told my friends like why are you even watching the NBA playoffs? Like come back
Right?
in the finals when it's
Yeah.
Warriors Cavs. This year I'm not saying that
Oh, and why is that?
because I think I think the Sixers are making it out of the first round, right? So then they play the winner of Celtics Bucks. And if the Cavs make it, because I think the who's leading that series?
Oh, the Pacers took game one
Yeah, the Pacers took
by
game
like
one, right?
18 points.
Yeah, so I mean the Cavs have, and I mean prior to this, the Cavs hadn't been looking good anyway, so they went all the way down to the
Yeah.
fourth seed.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of funny. We were talking about this before the show. Was that like credit to the Sixers for being able to build through the draft, but they went from like
Zero.
nothing to the 3 seed in the East real quick. Like they didn't take a 7 seed one year and then a 4 seed the next year. They just went straight to the 3 seed, which kind of speaks to how lopsided the NBA can be. And
I
credit
know.
to if you can build teams right, like the Sixers did.
I
But
mean,
like it just goes to show that other teams don't have that.
also I brought up so my big qualm with it is there are five starters and
Right.
they're on the court for most of the game, right? So you tank enough for 5 years, you get five really good players.
Well, in theory, there's always busts and stuff. Like
Well,
they
yeah, but you can
drafted Drew,
always like,
they drafted a center at like in the top three a few years ago. Spoiler alert: he's like barely playing for the Nets right now.
well, yeah, but I mean, you don't need five. You're not replacing your entire team, but you're if you make on two or three of them, you're immediately a contender because they're playing 30 minutes a night and have a 48-minute game.
No, yeah, you're right, and it's just. I
So, I
mean,
mean,
props
that's
to
my big thing.
Philadelphia in that regard. I mean, me personally, I'd love to see Philadelphia win it all. I don't think
Eh,
it's gonna happen, but they're like it's
I
hard to
hope
root
not.
against a team that built like that and
I
did
mean,
what
I can
seems
root
to be the
against
right play.
Philly not win. I can root for Philly not winning something else this year.
I mean, that's true, and like if we're being realistic, I don't think it's gonna happen. I mean,
No, but
the
I do
Cavs are a
think
4 seed, but
I no, but
what's
I
the
mean,
trend been?
they haven't shown up yet, and the way they've been playing down the stretch has not been good. So I really do think that the East is a little bit, oh, actually quite a bit more open than it used to be. Where I was just
Yeah,
like, why am I watching the playoffs? I tune in for NBA Finals because I knew it was Warriors Cavs. And it's not like that this year. Like, if you're a basketball fan, like, you can actually be interested in basically all of the series.
yeah. I mean, if you look at the West, just on paper in the West, the Wolves, Jimmy Butler, one of their star players, got hurt. And sure, they replaced most of the roster with guys from the 2013 Bulls roster. It seems like they got Derrick Rose on the bench. Jeff Teague wasn't a former Bulls player, but like all these guys who are like proven veterans that kind of fell off a little, they stepped up to some extent and got the Wolves to the playoffs. But like, and it should make things more interesting than like, I don't know, if you had the Suns in the playoffs and you knew like, it's just not gonna, it's only gonna go one way. But a Warriors Spurs series is nice on paper. Unfortunately, the Spurs' best player, Kawhi Leonard, has been MIA pretty much all year with an injury he's been cleared to come back from, and actually came out today. He's just not going to play at all for the rest of the year. I don't think either of us are informed enough to know what the story behind that is, if there's more to it than just an injury. So we're going to make it up and say that he's a crybaby. Probably not true, but if you've been cleared to play and you don't come back to play, I mean, you're getting paid pretty good money to play a game here.
I mean, even Johansson, he came back this game, right? And he was out from a Brad Marchand hit, right?
Back to hockey talk for a second, but yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to compare injuries, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Marchand was cleared to play about 3 games before the end of the regular season. And, I mean, it's a concussion, so I'm glad they took it safe. But, I mean, he was on the ice practicing every day and getting ready for that time when they would call on him. And I don't see that in Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah. You're not seeing much of anything in Kawhi Leonard for the past months, it seems like. This is a guy who's like a top 5 player in the league, just disappearing, which makes the league a lot more fun. Nothing like when your best players come together and don't show up.
Yeah.
But, also, not to take anything away from how severe these injuries for NBA players can be, but these NBA players aren't hockey tough. I mean, let me just stick with Boston teams right now. You got Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving, 2 guys who aren't playing for the rest of the year for Boston. Kyrie on his own was a guy who was supposed to come back. His injury was only supposed to be a couple weeks, and
Hayward was the entire season, and for a good reason. But
but Kyrie is like, it was only supposed to be a few-week injury. He'll be out until like the first round of the playoffs, and then we find out like, he's just playing out. But meanwhile, a few years ago for the Bruins in the conference finals, a guy blocked the shot and broke his leg, stayed out and stayed in the game, finished his shift. So
he didn't finish his shift, he finished the game.
No, well, I'm talking about Gregory Campbell for the Bruins. He finished the shift, but there have been other players who finished the game.
Yeah,
but
that's also culture, right? Like, I just feel like basketball's more of a solo sport and hockey's more of a team sport. So like, nobody wants to be the guy to let the team down. And in basketball, it's like, well, I just don't feel like scoring 30 points today.
Yeah. Someone will spot me. I gotta get my assist numbers up.
Yeah.
Which was actually one of the things that I think I heard about. LeBron was ripping on teammates after the Game 1 loss. Like, he was doing a great job of passing the ball, he said. But, like, nobody else was scoring. So, right, it's one game in the playoffs. LeBron's throwing his team under the bus. So, great for team chemistry. Not a toxic locker room at all, especially after you traded half the team away and brought in new guys. That definitely isn't going to be self-destructive.
So, like, I mean, we've literally just expended all of my knowledge of basketball right there.
I mean, yeah. That and Carmelo Anthony, he's on the Thunder. He's kind of like your Alex Ovechkin of basketball.
Dude, he's like the Jaromir Jagr of basketball. He's like, I don't want to stop playing.
But Jagr's won cups. Carmelo Anthony hasn't won a title.
Yeah, true. But like, the thing is, like, he didn't quit after his peak. He's just like, I'm still good enough, and that's the type of player who goes to the Nets.
Yeah, which is weird because normally
he went to the Thunder.
That's the kind of player that goes to the Knicks, but he was already there.
No, a type of player like him who wants to get paid and play but sucks goes to the Nets.
Yeah. Good times.
Which is probably where he should be because, I mean, the Nets suck, even though I'm a Nets fan, right? So
I mean, if there ever was such a thing.
I mean, back in '03 there was.
Yeah, back in the day. Back in the day when the logo didn't look like a piece of crap and the arena was called Continental Airlines Arena. After an airline company that doesn't exist anymore.
Well, it got bought out. Or merged.
Yeah, U.S. Airways now. But
nope.
Back in the day.
United.
And this has been Talking Airlines.
Yeah.
So, right then and there. The times change, but the Brooklyn Nets draft picks don't because they give them all away.
Yep.
That's very relevant to playoff basketball because, well, all those draft picks that Brooklyn traded away end up being on playoff teams, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, like, you trade away for Paul Pierce and you give up the first overall pick, right? That was dumb.
Yeah. But, I don't know. It should be more interesting, like you said, than recent years. I just don't know that it can't be those same teams again. I think that the West is a little more competitive than the East, but the East is like... The Celtics are the 2 seed, but they're not the strongest 2 seed. The Raptors are the number 1 seed, but I actually heard listening to, pardon my take, a Barstool podcast today, is Kyle Lowry said in the post-game interview, they've lost so many home game ones in like the time that the Raptors have been good that they were treating game 1 like game 7.
Yeah.
This is the first game of the playoffs. They're treating it like do or die. You can't do that. I mean, like, what's game 7 then? You're going to run out of energy and collapse.
No, but I think there is merit to a thinking like that. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but treating every game like it's its own, right? That's one thing. Like, because some people, like some teams, they go in and it's like, oh, it's game 1. If we lose, it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
But it does matter, right? So treating it as game 7 might not be the best because it puts a lot of pressure on everybody, but you have to learn to treat every game like it's its own, right? So if you win game 1, you have to forget it and go to game 2. If you lose game 1, you have to forget it and go to game 2. Any sport that has, series as their playoff format.
Yeah, I think that holds water for sure. I'm just not sure that, like...
But I think
in a 7-game series, you can't say that the first game is game 7 because you got to give yourself like a little bit of a fallback. Like, and I don't mean like able to slack off, but you have to be able to know that you have a margin for error.
Yep.
And like game 7 right off the bat, it's like, if you make it to the 3rd round, you're gonna be like a starting lineup of dead horses at that rate.
Yeah.
You're going to be putting way too much into yourself. And, like, kudos to them. That's a lot of work ethic. And it may be unmatched to any other team in the league. It's just... It's a tough look. I'm all for the work ethic. It's just a tough look. But I think... let's talk teams that are not going to the finals.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, I have no idea.
Yeah. And this is the fun of it is completely unqualified to be giving these takes, but oh man, I think that the Jazz, you had a nice run. You lost Gordon Hayward, and you still came back to the playoffs. So kudos to you, but you're not doing anything.
Well, okay. So let's. Well, I mean, I think it's easier to say the teams that we think have a shot at the finals, right? So, I mean, because you have to say the Warriors, and I think the Rockets and Thunder have a chance.
I think the Rockets, it's just...
I say they have a chance. I didn't say how much of a chance.
Yeah, I think they have a chance for sure. It's a team full of guys who haven't gotten past like the conference final in their
Yeah.
career, so it's very hard to say what the odds are there.
But like those are my three teams for the West, like right there. I have
All right.
barely any backing for any of it because I barely watch basketball.
No. I mean, hey, we're here to give our insight, regardless of if it's real or not. So
So
you might as
then
well do it.
on the East, I have like no idea. As much as I think the Sixers can make a good run, I don't know if they're finals material.
Right. I think they do have the easier part of the bracket. If they
Oh,
can take
definitely.
down Miami, the
I think
Bucks are only as good as Antetokounmpo can take them, and the Celtics are banged up. So Sixers, if they can win the series, I think they got a decent chance to get to the conference final.
yeah. I mean I agree with you, but I don't think they're NBA finals material.
Yeah, I don't think that this year is their year for that. I think they need a little bit more depth for that.
And at the same time, like the Cavs Pacers series is looking to be a close. Like it's looking that they're not going to win it cleanly
Yeah.
if the Cavs do win it.
And that's going to be, I guess, if you're a basketball fan, fun to watch.
Yeah.
I don't really want to watch LeBron James up and down the court bitching the refs. But I guess if you're a basketball fan, you kind of root for the Pacers if you're a neutral fan, just because like
It'll be
if
different.
you want to see, you want to see something different. You want to see
a story.
You want to see LeBron butt hurt a little bit, and he kind of. But at the same time, you're like, if that's how it goes down, is LeBron going to change teams again because he has the option to now? And it's like, here we go again. ESPN's going to pump that adrenaline and hype that up until there's no like drops left in that bottle. So, it's going to be just a storyline either way. And if LeBron can't throw his teammates under the bus enough, they'll probably make it to the conference final just because we've kind of seen how the Raptors don't last. But
yeah, I mean that's the only other
wrong.
team I would say, right? The
Yeah.
Raptors. So like we think the Sixers will make it to the conference final, and then it'll be the Raptors or Cavs. Because
Yeah.
I think the Raptors can beat the Pacers if they make it, right?
Yeah, so 3 teams in the conference final on the East, 2 on the West. 3 on the West. So, uh, that's definitely how brackets work. 3
Well,
teams.
I mean, we're just saying who we think has the better shot, right?
Right,
like-
yeah, but in terms of joking around, I think
Yeah.
that we go with 3 teams aside.
All right, well,
Yeah, so this has been basketball talking. I think
yeah.
we gave it all we could, and frankly, I'm exhausted from it. So, with that being said, anything else you wanted to touch on, Sean?
I mean, nothing basketball related.
No, just
just-
sports related in general.
So the Devils won their game, so it's now 2-1,
Let's go.
and the Maple Leafs won their game, so it's 2-1 there also. So we won't. Well, it's looking like, aside from Vegas and maybe Nashville, there won't be 4-0s.
Yeah, so we're starting to figure out that we are changing of the trends podcast. Last week we were figuring out the regular or the playoff seeding for hockey as we were hosting the show with I think the Florida Panthers and Boston game that went on. The Avalanche got into the playoffs at the last minute. And now we went from, at the start of the show, 2-0 and 3-0 series leads. All of a sudden, you got 2 less of them. We went from 6 of 8 to 4 of 8 with a commanding lead in the series. So, is it fair to say that we control the future?
Absolutely not.
Oh, well, until proven otherwise, I think it's justifiable to say that we do.
Okay, go ahead and say that.
All right, well,
All right. Well, I guess this has been In the Tunnel with Sean and Jeremy,
Yeah.
and we hope you listen for next episode.
We tried to put a nice time limit on this one. We said an hour and 20 minutes. We weren't going to go 2 hours again. But, we're going to cut it even shorter than that. We hope for more listeners this time. So that
Okay.
we'll be back next week either way. So tough luck if you don't like it.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening. Hope that you like, share, review on iTunes, and give us those 5 stars if you can. Spread the news, spread the word. We just want to keep going and deliver a great product, so help us out here. And that being said, we'll see you next week.